What's going on, wrestling family? Welcome back to the channel. Yes, I've already talked about this subject in a short 5 days ago, but what I wanted to do is create a long form video to kind of expound on some of the points that I made in that video. Now, if you did not see that short, what I talked about is this graphic that was circulating online, which basically said this Friday on SmackDown, Solo Sikoa is going to anoint Tanga Loa. Now, most people, when they saw that graphic, they were like, what exactly does this mean? What does this mean to anoint Tanga Loa, and what is he going to anoint him as? Now, if you ask me, in my personal opinion, I still believe to this day that he is going to make him the new wise man for the Bloodline 2.0. And what we're going to see on SmackDown tomorrow night is Paul Heyman, unfortunately, get kicked out of the group. So why do I believe that Tanga Loa will be the new wise man for the Bloodline 2.0? What would that look like? And why do I believe Paul Heyman will get kicked out of the group? Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Before I get started, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Also, understand, this is just a theory. Let's get into this. So backstage, Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa had a conversation, and I think it's really interesting because it pretty much showed us the difference between how Roman ran the Bloodline and how Solo Sikoa is running the Bloodline 2.0 and plan to run it in the future. From the perspective of Paul Heyman, he basically tells Solo Sikoa when Roman Reigns ran the Bloodline, when he did his thing, it was all for a purpose. There was strategy behind it. It was planned, and then we executed. And if Roman Reigns couldn't figure it out, he counseled with the wise man, and we came to a wise decision, and then we moved on to that. Everything was in its place for a purpose, but the way that you're running it, Solo Sikoa, it seems like you're just hiring violent men, and you're just doing these random acts of violence with no strategy behind it, just loose cannon doing whatever you want to do. And if you look at Solo Sikoa's face, he's basically saying, bro, I don't want to hear nothing you got to say right now. I'm going to do everything I need to do, and I'm going to tell you what you're about to do next. Now, the important part in this conversation is when Paul Heyman says, well, Roman Reigns basically told us that we need to handle Cody Rhodes. And Solo Sikoa says, well, we already got him. We already got him handled, and he don't even know it. And Paul Heyman says, all due respect, who is we? And then we hear the theme song of Kevin Owens. So after that, I think Paul Heyman really messed up because Solo Sikoa sent them out to the ring to handle Kevin Owens. And one of the things that Paul Heyman said that was not a good idea is to say that he misses Roman Reigns. So if I'm Solo Sikoa and I see somebody, a part of my group, saying something like that, it pretty much shows that he has an emotional attachment to the leader of the previous version of the Bloodline, the person I don't want anything to do with this operation. So I gotta kick him out of the group. He could be feeding information to Roman. He could be devising a plan to try to stop what I got going on. Who knows? But he has to go at this moment. And you got to remember, at the end of the conversation between Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa, Solo basically said we already have a strategized plan on how we're handling Cody Rhodes. And Paul Heyman looked surprised. It was like, what do you mean we? Which means that Solo Sikoa is excluding this man from the operation. So I think this is the start of him wedging him out of the group. And with both of these guys having two different ideas on what's successful, Solo thinks that violence is what's going to make them successful. Paul Heyman thinks that the way that Roman Reigns ran the Bloodline is going to make him successful. You got to kick the man out of a group because he's going to be a weight. And before we move on to Tanga Loa, remember there was times that Solo Sikoa thought the Samoan Spike was the perfect solution for a lot of problems in the Bloodline, and they kept stopping him over and over. So now he finally has a Bloodline where violence can be the solution for every problem they come across. And he probably doesn't respect how Roman Reigns ran the Bloodline, how they had members coming in and out, and so many goofy yet entertaining things were happening. He probably wants to run a tight ship where they strike fear into people and use violence to get their way. And he probably wants to prove that he knows how to do this better than Roman Reigns. So the reason I believe that Tanga Loa will be elevated as the new wise man is because whenever anyone in a high-ranking position anoints anyone, that means that they are putting oil in this person, they're setting them aside and making them dedicate themselves to a higher role or position. And as far as we understand, the highest position is the tribal chief, and the only other position outside of that is the wise man at this point in time. And we got to think about this too. They said that he was going to anoint Tanga Loa. So it doesn't mean that they are going to anoint him into the Bloodline 2.0, because if that was the case, they would have had Tama Tonga go through the same process in order to be a part of the group. So I had someone ask me, if Tanga Loa is going to be the new wise man, does this mean he's going to talk a lot more? And in my personal opinion, I don't think he's going to talk a lot more. I don't think we need to use Paul Heyman's template of a wise man and apply that to everybody, because to be animated and be talking a lot lot, that is Paul Heyman. That's just his personality. He's been that way since the ECW days. Now, he's been a lot more dramatic now as opposed to back then, but that's just who he is. But I really believe that Tonga Loa will be the stark contrast of Paul Heyman, and I would not be surprised if when Solo Sikoa anoints him, he doesn't name him the Wiseman, he names him something else, and he becomes this person who's kind of like this silent assassin where you don't know that he has a plan until the plan has already been executed, in the way where he strikes fear into people, because I think that's just going to be the whole vibe of the Bloodline 2.0. We're going to strike fear into people, and we're going to use violence to get our way. So don't be surprised if in the future we see a lot of things happening where backstage there's a body laying there and they can't figure out who did it, and we find out down the line that it was actually Tonga Loa by the orders of Solo Sikoa. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think with all of that, that Tonga Loa will still fulfill his position as a Wiseman, even if they don't specifically name him that, because remember, at the end of the conversation between Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa, he said that we have a plan on how we're going to handle Cody Rhodes, which means that he conversed with somebody to find out how they're going to execute this plan, and Tonga Loa will be that person that he talks with. And then the interesting part is, by moving Tonga Loa up to be in his Wiseman position, you have a slot open for one more member to make this 4 people, and that could possibly be Jacob Fatu. Maybe we see Jacob Fatu get introduced at SmackDown, but I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Am I out of my mind, or does this make sense? I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching. Salute, peace, have a good day.